The alarm beeped on the control panel. Captain Deho looked up from his coffee and frowned. Another piece of junk floating in space. Probably. The Koros drift was full of broken ships and old satellites. Most days, he found nothing worth taking. He leaned forward in his chair and checked the screen. His eyes went wide. The energy reading was strong. Too strong for scrap metal. This was something big. "Hannah, come look at this," he called out. His engineer walked into the control room, wiping oil from her hands. She had been fixing the water recycler all morning. Her short black hair was messy, and she looked tired. "What is it?" she asked. "Big ship. Dead in the water. No power signature, but the hull is intact." Deho pointed at the screen. "Look at the design. That is a Vrake ship." Hannah whistled softly. The Vrakes were one of the oldest and proudest species in the galaxy. They looked like dragons from old Earth stories, with scales and wings and sharp claws. They were also very rich. A Vrake ship meant valuable technology inside. "Are you sure we should go near it?" Hannah asked. "The Vrakes do not like people touching their stuff." "It is abandoned," Deho said. "No power. No life signs. According to salvage law. Anything floating dead in neutral space is fair game." He grinned. "Besides, when did we ever play it safe?" Hannah sighed. She knew that grin. It meant Deho had already made up his mind. "Fine," she said, "but if we get shot by Imperial guards, I'm going to say I told you so." Deho laughed and called for Jaiwin, their navigator. She was young, only 23, but she could fly the ship through an asteroid field with her eyes closed. She came running from the engine room, her face excited. "Did you find something good?" she asked. "Maybe," Deho said. "Get us close. Nice and slow. Keep the weapons online just in case." The steady hand moved through the debris field like a careful cat. It was not a pretty ship. The hull was covered with patches and welds from 100 repairs. But it was reliable, and that was what mattered in the outer rim. As they got closer, the Vrake ship came into view. It was beautiful. The hull was deep red, polished like a mirror. Gold lines ran along the sides in elegant patterns. The ship was called the Crimson Wing, according to the nameplate on the side. "That is a luxury cruiser," Hannah said quietly. "Only rich Vrake families own ships like that. Then they can afford to lose one," Deho said. He stood up. "Jaiwin, dock us to their airlock. Hannah, grab your tools. We're going inside." The airlock connected with a soft clang. Deho pulled on his jacket and checked his sidearm. He did not expect trouble, but he had learned long ago to be ready for it. Hannah grabbed her scanner and toolkit. Jaiwin stayed on the steady hand to watch the sensors. The door to the Vrake ship opened with a hiss. Cold air rushed out. Deho stepped inside and looked around. The hallway was wide and tall, built for creatures much larger than humans. Holographic displays hung frozen on the walls, showing star maps and family crests. Everything was clean and expensive. "No dust," Hannah said. "This ship has not been here long. Maybe a few weeks at most." They walked through the ship slowly, checking each room. The bedrooms were empty. The dining hall was empty. The control room was empty. It was like everyone had just vanished. "This is weird," Deho muttered. Even if the crew abandoned ship, there should be logs. Emergency beacons. Something. That was when they heard it. A small sound, barely audible. A sob. A child crying. Deho froze. Hannah looked at him with wide eyes. They followed the sound down a hallway to the cargo hold. The door was sealed, but not locked. Deho pushed it open. Inside, sitting on the cold metal floor, was a small Vrake's child. He was tiny, no bigger than a human 5-year-old. His scales were bright crimson, shimmering in the low light. He had small horns on his head and tiny wing buds on his back, barely visible. His golden eyes were full of tears. In his clawed hands, he held the broken pieces of a toy. It looked like a mechanical dragon, snapped in half. The child looked up at them and made a small, frightened sound. He pulled the broken toy closer to his chest. "What the hell?" Hannah whispered. Deho stepped forward slowly, hands raised to show he meant no harm. He did not speak Vrakesh very well, but he tried anyway. Hello, he said in broken Vraksh. We are not going to hurt you. The child just stared at him. Shaking, his translator device kicked in, turning the child's words into Galactic Standard. Broken, the child whispered. I am broken. They left me because I am broken. Deho felt his chest tighten. He knelt down to be at eye level with the child. Behind him, Hannah was already scanning the ship's computer logs. What is your name? Deho asked gently. The child hesitated, then spoke in a small voice. Taeyong. Taeyong. Deho repeated. That is a good name. I am Deho. This is Hannah. He pointed to his engineer. Can you tell me what happened? Taeyong looked down at the broken toy. My wings do not grow, he said quietly. The doctor said they never will. Mother said I was a shame to the family. Father said I could not be a son anymore. They brought me here and left. Hannah looked up from the computer screen, her face pale. Captain, she said, the logs confirm it. The family recorded everything. They abandoned him here on purpose. Set the ship to drift into the void. They wanted him to disappear. Deho felt anger rise in his chest. He had seen a lot of terrible things in the galaxy, but this was something else. Leaving a child to die alone in space because he was not perfect enough. It made him sick. He looked at Taeyong. The child was still shaking, clutching his broken toy like it was the only thing left in the universe. Listen to me, Taeyong, Deho said. You are not broken. You hear me? You are just lost. And I am pretty good at finding things worth keeping. The child looked up at him with those big golden eyes, confused and hopeful at the same time. Deho held out his hand. Come on, let us get you out of here. Taeyong stared at the hand for a long moment. Then, slowly, he reached out and took it. His claws were small and harmless, like a kitten's. Deho helped him stand. We should call this in, Hannah said quietly. Contact child services. Let the authorities handle it. Deho looked at Taeyong. The child was so small, so scared. If they handed him over to the authorities, what would happen? Would they send him back to his family? Would they put him in some facility? Would anyone actually care about him? No, Deho said firmly. We take him with us. At least until we figure out a safe place for him. Captain, Hannah said, her voice worried. This is a Vrak's child, from a noble family. If we take him, we could start a diplomatic incident. The Empire does not forgive easily. They abandoned him. Deho said, as far as I am concerned, he is salvage, and salvage belongs to whoever finds it. He looked down at Taeyong. Besides, we are not going to leave a kid to die alone in space. That is not who we are. Hannah sighed. She knew that tone. Deho had made his decision, and nothing would change his mind. Fine, she said, but when the Vraksh Empire comes looking for us, I am telling them this was all your idea. Deho smiled. Deal. They walked back to the steady hand together. Taeyong held tightly to Deho's hand, his broken toy clutched in the other. When they crossed through the airlock, Jaiwin gasped. Is that Vrak's child? She asked, shocked. His name is Taeyong, Deho said, and he is staying with us for a while. Jaiwin looked at Hannah, who just shrugged. Then she looked at Taeyong. The child was staring at everything with wide, curious eyes. Despite his fear, there was something else there too. Wonder. Jaiwin smiled. Well then, she said, welcome aboard, Taeyong. That night, after Taeyong fell asleep in the spare cabin, Deho sat in the control room and stared out at the stars. He knew this was going to cause problems. Big problems. The Vraksh Empire did not take kindly to humans interfering in their business. But when he thought about that small child, abandoned and alone, crying over a broken toy, he knew he had made the right choice. Sometimes, doing the right thing meant making enemies. Deho could live with that. Taeyong woke up screaming. Deho rushed into the spare cabin, his heart pounding. The small Vraksh child was sitting up in bed, tears streaming down his scale face. His whole body was shaking. Hey, it's okay, Deho said softly. He sat on the edge of the bed, careful not to touch the child without permission. You're safe. You're on my ship. Nobody is going to hurt you. Taeyong looked at him with wide, terrified eyes. For a moment, he seemed confused, like he did not remember where he was. Then recognition came back. and he started crying harder. "I thought it was a dream," the child whispered in broken galactic standard. "I thought maybe they came back for me." Deho felt his chest tighten. He wanted to say something comforting, but what could he say? The truth was harsh. Taeyang's family had abandoned him. They were not coming back. "I know this is hard," Deho said quietly, "but you're not alone anymore. You're with us now." Taeyong wiped his eyes with the back of his small clawed hand. He looked down at the blanket, then at the broken toy sitting on the small table beside the bed. "Can you really fix it?" he asked, his voice small. Deho picked up the broken mechanical dragon. The wings were snapped off, and the internal gears were bent. It would take time and patience, but he could do it. "I can fix it," he said. "It might take a few days, but I'll make it work again. I promise." For the first time since they found him, Taeyong smiled. It was a small, fragile thing, but it was real. The next morning, Hannah called a crew meeting. She, Deho, and Jaiwin sat around the small table in the galley. Taeyong was still asleep in his cabin. "We need to talk about this," Hannah said. She looked tired. "We have a Vrake's child on board. A noble child. Do you understand what that means?" Deho sipped his coffee and nodded. He understood perfectly. The Vrake's Empire was one of the most powerful governments in the galaxy. They controlled dozens of star systems and had a military that could crush most opposition. They also had very strict rules about family and honor. "If they find out we took him, they could charge us with kidnapping," Hannah continued. "They could seize our ship. They could throw us in prison." "They abandoned him," Jaiwin said, her voice sharp. "They left a child to die. How is saving him kidnapping?" "Because they're Vrakes and we're human," Hannah said. "They don't see it the way we do. To them, Taeyong is property. Damaged property, but still theirs." Deho set down his coffee cup. "So what do you suggest?" he asked. "We drop him off at the nearest station and let someone else deal with it?" Hannah hesitated. She looked uncomfortable. "I'm not saying we abandon him," she said. "I'm saying we need to be smart about this. We contact Child Protection Services. We make sure he goes somewhere safe, somewhere legal. And if they send him back to his family?" Jaiwin asked. Nobody answered that question. Deho stood up and walked to a window. Outside, stars drifted past in the endless black. He had spent 20 years in space. 20 years salvaging, surviving, staying one step ahead of trouble. He knew how to play it safe. He knew how to avoid complications. But when he thought about Taeyong, small and scared and crying in that cargo hold, something in him refused to walk away. "We keep him," Deho said. "At least for now. We don't contact anyone. We don't make any reports. We just keep moving and figure things out as we go." "Captain," Hannah said, her voice worried. "I know the risks," Deho said, "but I'm not handing him over to people who might send him back to die. If that makes me a criminal, so be it." Jaiwin smiled. Hannah just sighed and shook her head. "You're impossible," Hannah said, but there was no real anger in her voice. She had known Deho for 8 years. She knew he was stubborn. She also knew he was usually right about these things. Over the next few days, life on the Steady Hand changed. Taeyong was quiet and shy at first. He stayed in his cabin most of the time, only coming out for meals. He ate very little. When he did speak, it was in soft, hesitant words. But slowly, he began to open up. Jaiwin was the first to break through his shell. She found him one afternoon staring at the navigation display in the control room. His golden eyes were wide with wonder as he watched the stars move past. "Do you like space?" she asked. Taeyong nodded. He pointed at the screen. "I've never seen so many stars," he said. On the Crimson Wing, they kept the windows closed. Mother said looking at space too much was improper. Jaiwin made a face. "Well, on this ship, you can look at the stars as much as you want," she said. She pulled up a chair beside him. "Here, let me show you something." She brought up a star chart and began pointing out constellations. Taeyong listened with complete focus, asking questions in his broken galactic standard. Jaiwin answered each one patiently, happy to have someone interested in her work. Hannah was harder to win over. She was still worried about the legal problems they were creating. But one day, she found Taeyong in the engine room, staring at the reactor core with fascination. You shouldn't be in here, she said. It's dangerous. Taeyong jumped, startled. He looked guilty. I'm sorry, he said quickly. I just want to see how it works. I'll go. He started to leave, but Hannah stopped him. Wait, she said. She studied him for a moment, then sighed. Fine, you can stay, but don't touch anything without asking first. Taeyang's face lit up. Hannah spent the next hour explaining how the reactor worked, how the engine converted energy into thrust, how every system on the ship connected together. Taeyong absorbed every word like a sponge. You're a smart kid, Hannah said when they were done. You could be a good engineer someday. Taeyong looked down at his small hands, at his tiny claws. Mother said I would never be good at anything important, he said quietly. Because I'm broken. Hannah felt anger flash through her. She knelt down to his level. Your mother was wrong, she said firmly. You're not broken. You're different, and different can be good. Taeyong looked at her, hope and doubt warring in his golden eyes. Meanwhile, Daeho worked on the broken toy every evening. He sat at his workbench in the cargo hold, carefully straightening gears and soldering connections. It was delicate work. The toy was old and expensive, built with technology he barely understood. But he had always been good with his hands. He had fixed 1,000 broken things in his life. He could fix one more. One evening, Taeyong appeared in the doorway of the cargo hold. He watched Daeho work for a while, silent. You don't have to fix it, the child said eventually. I know it's just a toy. Daeho looked up. It's not just a toy, he said. It's important to you. That makes it important to me. Taeyong came closer, watching as Daeho carefully attached one of the dragon's wings back into place. Why are you being nice to me? Taeyong asked. You don't know me. I'm not even your species. Daeho paused. It was a good question. He thought about it for a moment. Because you needed help, he said simply, and because leaving someone behind when they need you is the worst thing you can do. At least, that's what I believe. Is that a human thing? Taeyong asked. Daeho smiled. I guess it is, he said. Humans are weird like that. We adopt things. Stray animals. Broken machines. Lost kids. It drives other species crazy. Taeyong thought about that. Then he asked another question. What will happen to me when we reach the next station? Daeho set down his tools. He looked at the child, at those worried golden eyes. I don't know yet, he said honestly, but I promise you this. Whatever happens, I won't let anyone hurt you. You're safe here, as long as you want to stay. Taeyong nodded slowly. Then he did something unexpected. He stepped forward and hugged Daeho. The captain froze for a moment, surprised. Then he wrapped his arms around the small child and hugged him back. Thank you, Taeyong whispered. 3 days later, Daeho finished the toy. He called Taeyong to the cargo hold and presented it to him. The mechanical dragon was perfect. Its wings moved smoothly. Its eyes glowed with soft light. When Daeho pressed the activation switch, it let out a small mechanical chirp and flapped its wings. Taeyong's eyes went wide. He took the toy carefully, holding it like it was made of glass. For a long moment, he just stared at it. Then he started crying. But these were not sad tears. These were tears of joy, of relief, of something deeper that Daeho could not quite name. Taeyong threw his arms around the captain again, clutching the toy to his chest. You fixed it, he said through his tears. You really fixed it. Daeho patted his back gently. I told you I would, he said. That night, Taeyong slept peacefully for the first time since they found him. The mechanical dragon sat on the table beside his bed, its wings folded, keeping watch. And in the control room, Daeho sat with Hannah and Jaiwan, watching the stars drift past. They all knew this was only the beginning. Sooner or later, the Vrakes Empire would come looking. Sooner or later, they would have to make some hard choices. But for now, they had given one small child a reason to hope. And sometimes that was enough. The warning alarm woke everyone at 3 in the morning. Daeho jumped out of bed and ran to control room. Hannah was already there, her fingers flying over the scanner controls. What is it? Daeho asked. Ship approaching fast, Hannah said. Her voice was tight. Big one. Military grade. They're hailing us. Daeho felt his stomach drop. He had known this moment would come. He just hoped they would have more time. "Vrake," she asked. Hannah nodded. On the screen, a massive warship appeared. Its hull was dark purple, decorated with golden symbols of the Vrake's empire. Weapons ports lined its sides like teeth. Jaiwin rushed into control room, her hair messy from sleep. "Should I run?" she asked. "No," Deho said. "We can't outrun a warship. Answer the hail." The screen flickered. A Vrake's female appeared. She was tall and imposing, with deep purple scales and wings that looked sharp enough to cut steel. Her eyes were cold and golden. She wore the uniform of an Imperial overseer. "Human vessel steady hand," she said. Her voice was smooth but hard. "I am Overseer Myri of the Imperial Fleet. You are ordered to power down your engines and prepare to be boarded." Deho kept his face calm. Inside, his mind was racing. "Under what authority?" he asked. "We're in neutral space. You have no jurisdiction here." Myri's expression did not change. "We have reason to believe you are harboring stolen Imperial property," she said. "Specifically, a child of noble blood. Return him immediately, and you will face only minor charges. Refuse, and you will be arrested for kidnapping." "Kidnapping?" Deho said, anger rising in his voice. "We found him abandoned on a derelict ship. His family left him to die. How is saving a child kidnapping?" For the first time, something flickered in Myri's eyes. Not sympathy, just a hint of discomfort. "The internal affairs of noble families are not your concern," she said. "The child belongs to the Empire. You will return him now." "No," Deho said. Hannah grabbed his arm, her eyes wide with fear. Jaiwin looked like she wanted to say something, but did not know what. Myri's face hardened. "You refuse a direct order from an Imperial overseer?" she asked. "Do you understand the consequences?" "I understand perfectly," Deho said. "You want me to hand over a child so you can return him to the family that tried to kill him. I won't do it." Behind him, a small voice spoke. "Captain?" Deho turned. Taeyong stood in the doorway of the control room. The child was in his sleep clothes, holding his mechanical dragon. His golden eyes were wide and scared. "Taeyong, go back to your cabin," Deho said gently. But Taeyong did not move. He looked at the screen, at Overseer Myri. The Vrake's woman stared at him, her expression unreadable. "So this is a defective child," Myri said. Her voice was cold. "Small, wingless. I can see why the family chose to dispose of him." Taeyong flinched like he had been struck. Deho felt rage flood through him. "He's not defective," Deho said through gritted teeth. "He's a child, and he deserves better than to be treated like garbage." Myri ignored him. She spoke directly to Taeyong. "Child, I am authorized to take you back to your family. They have agreed to accept you into their household again. You will be cared for, educated, given everything you need." Taeyang's small hand tightened around his toy dragon. "Will I be locked away?" he asked quietly. "Hidden so nobody knows about me?" Myri hesitated. "Just for a moment. You will be protected," she said. "Kept safe from those who might mock or harm you." "That's not an answer," Taeyong said. His voice was small but steady. "You mean yes? They'll lock me away." Myri's jaw tightened. "It is for your own good," she said. Taeyong looked up at Deho. The captain saw fear in those golden eyes, but also something else. "Trust. I don't want to go back," Taeyong said. "Please, I want to stay here." Deho knelt down and put a hand on the child's shoulder. "Then you'll stay," he said. "I promise you I wouldn't let anyone hurt you. I meant it." He stood and faced the screen again. "You heard him," Deho said to Myri. "He doesn't want to go, and we're not giving him up." Myri's eyes narrowed. "Then you leave me no choice," she said. "My Marines will board your vessel. If you resist, you'll be fired upon. This is your final warning." Deho felt his heart pounding. He looked at Hannah and Jaiwin. They both looked terrified. He could not blame them. They were about to go to war with the Vrake's empire over one small child. But then Hannah stepped forward. "Captain's right," she said. "We're not handing him over." Jaiwin nodded. "Taeyong is part of our crew," she said. "We don't abandon crew." Deho felt pride swell in his chest. He looked back at Myri. You want him? Deho said. Come and take him. But I promise you it won't be easy. For a long moment, Myri stared at him. Then something unexpected happened. She smiled. It was a cold smile, but there was a hint of respect in it. Humans, she said, always so stubborn, so foolish. You would risk everything for a child that is not even your kind. Yes, Deho said simply. Myri was silent for a moment. Then she spoke again. I could destroy your ship, she said. Take the child by force. But that would create complications. Humans have allies. Your government would protest. There would be investigations, diplomatic incidents. She leaned forward. So I will give you this warning instead. The Empire will not forget this insult. You have interfered in our affairs. There will be consequences. Legal action. Trade sanctions. Perhaps worse. Do you understand? I understand, Deho said. Myri looked past him at Taeyong one more time. Something flickered in her eyes. Pity? Regret? Deho could not tell. You are making a mistake, she said to the child. These humans cannot protect you. Sooner or later, the Empire will claim what belongs to it. Taeyong stepped closer to Deho. I don't belong to the Empire, he said. I belong here. Myri's expression hardened. Without another word, she cut the transmission. The screen went dark. For a long moment, nobody moved. They all stared at the screen, waiting for the warship to open fire. But nothing happened. Hannah checked the scanner. They're leaving, she said, her voice shaking with relief. They're actually leaving. Jaiwin let out a breath she had been holding. Deho felt his legs go weak. He sat down heavily in the captain's chair. They had just defied the Vrake's empire and survived. Taeyong climbed into Deho's lap and hugged him tightly. The captain wrapped his arms around the small child. Thank you, Taeyong whispered. Thank you for not giving me away. I made you a promise, Deho said. I keep my promises. But even as he held the child, Deho knew this was not over. Myri had been clear. There would be consequences. The Empire would not forget. Later that day, after Taeyong had gone back to bed, the crew met in the galley. They all looked exhausted. We need to be smart about this, Hannah said. The Empire is going to come after us. Maybe not with warships, but with lawyers, bounty hunters, trade restrictions. What do you suggest? Deho asked. Hannah pulled up a data file on her tablet. I've been doing research, she said. There might be a legal way to protect Taeyong. If we can get him officially adopted under human law, the Empire would have a harder time taking him back. Adopted? Jaiwin said. Earth has very strong child protection laws, Hannah explained. They apply to all children, regardless of species. If Deho formally adopts Taeyong, he becomes a legal guardian. The Vrakes would have to go through Earth's courts to get him back. Deho thought about it. Adoption, making Taeyong his son, not just in feeling but in law. How long would that take, he asked. Months, maybe. Hannah said, we would need to file paperwork, attend hearings, prove that Taeyong is better off with us than with his birth family. That should be easy, Jaiwin said. His birth family tried to kill him. It's not that simple, Hannah said. The Vrakes have influence in the Galactic Council. They'll fight this. It's going to be a battle. Deho looked toward the hallway, toward the cabin where Taeyong slept. He thought about the small child who had been thrown away like trash. The child who now smiled and laughed and asked endless questions about how things worked. Then we fight, he said. Whatever it takes. Taeyong is family now, and we protect family. Hannah and Jaiwin nodded. They all knew the road ahead would be difficult, but they also knew it was the right thing to do. Sometimes, doing the right thing meant fighting impossible battles. And humans, for all their faults, had never been very good at backing down from a fight. The Galactic Council Station was enormous. It floated in orbit around a neutral star, a massive structure of metal and glass where representatives from hundreds of species gathered to make laws and settle disputes. Deho had never been here before. The place made him uncomfortable. Too many politicians. Too many rules. But if they wanted to protect Taeyong legally, this was where they had to be. The steady hand docked at one of the smaller ports. As they walked through the station corridors, Taeyong stayed close to Deho, holding his hand tightly. The child stared at everything with wide eyes. There were so many different species here. Tall ones, short ones, ones with fur, and ones with scales. Some walked on 2 legs, some on 4, some floated in the air. I've never seen so many different people, Taeyong whispered. The galaxy is a big place, Daeho said. Lots of different kind of folks out here. Many people stared at them as they passed. A human captain with a small Vrake's child was unusual. Some looked curious. Others looked disapproving. A few Vrake's delegates they passed looked outright angry. They met their lawyer in a small office near the council chambers. Her name was Yunji, and she was a human woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and gray hair pulled back in a neat bun. She specialized in interspecies family law. Captain Daeho, she said, shaking his hand. Thank you for coming. And this must be Taeyong. Taeyong looked up at her shyly. Yunji knelt down to his level and smiled. Hello, Taeyong, she said. I'm going to help make sure you can stay with Captain Daeho. Is that what you want? Taeyong nodded quickly. Yes, he said. Very much. Yunji stood and gestured for them to sit. I won't lie to you, she said. This is going to be difficult. The Vrake's Empire has filed a formal claim. They're arguing that Taeyong is imperial property and that you kidnapped him. They have expensive lawyers and a lot of influence on the council. But we have the truth, Daeho said. They abandoned him. We have the ship logs to prove it. Truth doesn't always win in court, Yunji said, but it's a good start. The key is proving that Taeyong is better off with you than with his birth family. We need to show that you can provide a safe, stable home for him. Over the next few days, they prepared for the hearing. Yunji asked Daeho endless questions about his life, his ship, his income. She interviewed Hannah and Jaiwin. She even spoke with Taeyong alone, asking him about his time on the Steady Hand. Meanwhile, the Vrake's delegation was preparing too. Daeho saw their lawyers in the station corridors, tall and intimidating in their formal robes. They looked confident, too confident. The night before the hearing, Daeho could not sleep. He sat in the small quarters they had rented on the station, staring out at the stars. Taeyong appeared in the doorway, his mechanical dragon tucked under one arm. Can't sleep either? Daeho asked. Taeyong shook his head. He climbed up onto the chair beside Daeho and looked out the window. What if they make me go back? The child asked quietly. Daeho put an arm around him. They won't, he said. I promise. You can't promise that, Taeyong said. You're not in charge here. The child was right, and they both knew it. Daeho pulled him closer. Then I promise this, he said. No matter what happens in that hearing, I won't give up. If they rule against us, we'll appeal. If that doesn't work, we'll find another way. I will do everything in my power to keep you safe. Taeyong looked up at him with those big golden eyes. Why, he asked. Why do you care so much? I'm not even your species. Daeho thought about that question. He had asked himself the same thing many times over the past few months. Because you're a kid who needed help, he said finally. And because somewhere along the way, you became family. Family isn't about blood or species. It's about who you choose to stand beside. And I choose you. Taeyong hugged him tightly. They sat like that for a long time, watching the stars together. The hearing chamber was packed. Delegates from dozens of species filled the observation seats, curious to see how this case would unfold. At the front of the room sat 5 judges from different species, chosen to be impartial. The lead judge was a tall, gray-skinned being called a Sivrith, known for their strict adherence to law. On one side of the room sat Daeho, Yunji, and Taeyong. On the other side sat 3 Vrake's lawyers in formal robes, along with several imperial officials. The lead judge called the hearing to order. We are here to determine custody of the minor Taeyong, bloodline of House Crimson Wing. The judge said, the Vrake's Empire claims that the child was taken without permission and must be returned. Captain Daeho claims that the child was abandoned and that he is seeking legal adoption. Let's begin. The Vrake's lawyers spoke first. They were smooth and professional. They argued that Taeyong was imperial property, that his bloodline made him valuable to the Empire, and that his family had the right to make decisions about his care. They claimed that the child had been placed on the ship temporarily for medical treatment, not abandoned. It was a complete lie. but they said it with such confidence that some of the judges looked convinced. Then it was Yunji's turn. She presented the ship logs from the Crimson Wing, showing clearly that Taeyong had been deliberately abandoned. She showed medical scans proving that Taeyong was healthy aside from his wing development. She presented testimony from Hannah and Jaiwin about finding the child alone and terrified. But the most powerful moment came when Yunji called Taeyong to speak. The small Vrake's child walked to the front of the chamber. He looked tiny compared to the tall judges. His legs were shaking, but he stood straight. Yunji spoke gently. Taeyong, can you tell the council what happened to you? Taeyong took a deep breath. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but clear. My mother said I was broken because my wings don't grow, he said. She said I was a shame to the family. My father said he couldn't have a defective son. They took me to the ship and left me there. They said nobody would find me. They said I would just disappear. There were murmurs around the chamber. Even some of the Vrake's delegates looked uncomfortable. And what happened then? Yunji asked. Captain Dell found me, Taeyong said. He looked over at Daeho. He could have left me there. He could have reported me and let someone else deal with it. But he didn't. He took me to his ship. He gave me food and a bed. He fixed my toy. Taeyong held up the mechanical dragon. This was broken, just like my family said I was. He continued. But Captain Daeho didn't throw it away. He fixed it. He made it work again. He told me that broken things can be made whole. The child looked at the judges. My birth family left me to die. Captain Daeho saved my life. He and his crew taught me things. They made me feel like I matter. If that's not family, what is? The chamber was silent. Even the Vrake's lawyers seemed at a loss for words. The lead judge leaned forward. Child, do you wish to return to your birth family? No, Taeyong said firmly. I want to stay with Captain Daeho. He's my family now. The judges conferred quietly among themselves. The wait felt like forever. Daeho could feel his heart pounding in his chest. Finally, the lead judge spoke. This council has reviewed the evidence and heard testimony from both sides. The judge said, the evidence is clear that the child was deliberately abandoned by his birth family. Under galactic law, abandonment severs parental rights. The Vrake's lawyer started to object, but the judge held up a hand. Furthermore, the judge continued, the child has clearly expressed his wishes. He does not wish to return to those who abandoned him. He wishes to stay with the human who saved him. The judge looked at Daeho. Captain Daeho, this council grants you legal guardianship of the minor Taeyong. The child is now under protection of Earth law and human custody. The Vrake's Empire's claim is denied. For a moment, Daeho could not believe what he was hearing. Then relief flooded through him. They had won. Taeyong was safe. Taeyong ran to him, and Daeho picked him up, hugging him tightly. The child was crying, but these were happy tears. The Vrake's delegation stood and left the chamber in angry silence. They had lost, and everyone knew it. Yunji smiled. Congratulations, Captain, she said. You're officially a father now. Daeho looked down at Taeyong, at the child who had come into his life by chance and changed everything. He thought about how strange life was. He had expected to find scrap metal that day. Instead, he had found a son. The legal battle was over, but Daeho knew the real work was just beginning. As the steady hand left the Galactic Council station, Taeyong sat quietly in the common room, staring at his newly issued identity card. It listed him as Taeyong Park Day, ward of Captain Daeho Park, citizen under Earth protection. The small Vrake's child traced the letters with one claw, his golden eyes wide with something between wonder and disbelief. Hannah brought him a cup of warm milk, a human comfort food she had introduced him to months ago. Taeyong took it with both hands, wrapping his claws carefully around the mug so he wouldn't break it. He had gotten better at controlling his strength around fragile human things. Does this mean they can't take me back? Taeyong asked, his voice small. He spoke in Galactic Standard now, with only a slight accent. The translator device sat in use on the table beside him. Daeho sat down across from him, his weathered face gentle. It means they can't take you back legally. The council said you're my son now. That's not something they can undo. But they'll try anyway. It wasn't a question. Taeyong had learned enough about his own people to know how they thought. The Vraksh Empire did not accept defeat gracefully. Probably, Daeho admitted, he never lied to the boy, but we'll handle it. We always do. Jaiwin called from the navigation deck that they were ready to jump to hyperspace. Daeho ruffled the scales on Taeyang's head, a gesture the child had come to love, and headed to the cockpit. Taeyong followed close behind, as he always did. He felt safer when he could see Daeho. The first few months after the adoption were surprisingly quiet. They returned to their salvage work, drifting to the outer rim and picking to the debris fields that most other crews ignored. It was honest work, if not particularly exciting. Taeyong learned quickly. His small size allowed him to squeeze into tight spaces that the adult humans couldn't reach. He had a natural talent for finding valuable components hidden in the wreckage. One day, while exploring a derelict cargo hauler, Taeyong discovered a cache of old data cores. Hannah examined them and let out a low whistle. These are pre-war navigation records. Collectors will pay good money for these. How much money? Taeyong asked, his tail swishing with excitement. He had learned to appreciate the importance of profit margins. Life on a salvage ship had taught him that. Enough to upgrade our scanning array, Hannah said. Maybe even get you a proper bedroom instead of that storage closet you've been sleeping in. Taeyong looked down at his feet. I like my room. It's cozy. The truth was, he liked the small space because it reminded him of the cargo hold where Daeho had found him. It felt safe, but he didn't say that out loud. They sold the data cores at Outpost Vela, the same station where Daeho had first tried to register Taeyong as his ward. The Sivrith administrator, Kirill, watched them with suspicious eyes as they conducted their business. When Daeho and Taeyong left the trading office, Kirill stopped them. You should be careful, human, Kirill said, his multiple eyes blinking in sequence. The Vrakes have long memories. They do not forget insults. Is that a threat? Daeho asked calmly. A warning. There have been inquiries. Ships asking about a human salvage vessel with a Vrakes child aboard. I told them nothing, but others might not be so discreet. Daeho thanked him and left quickly, his hand on Taeyang's shoulder. The boy could feel the tension in his grip. That night, Daeho called a crew meeting. They sat around a small table in the common room, and for the first time, Taeyong was included in the discussion as an equal. We need to be smart about this, Daeho said. The Empire can't touch us legally, but they have other ways of making life difficult. We should expect trouble. What kind of trouble? Jaiwin asked. Harassment, delays at stations, maybe hired mercenaries if they're feeling bold. Daeho looked at each of them in turn. I won't blame any of you if you want to leave. This wasn't what you signed up for. Hannah snorted. Don't be dramatic. We've dealt with worse than angry lizards with entitlement issues. They're not lizards, Taeyong said quietly. We're draconic. There's a difference. Sorry, kid. Angry dragons with entitlement issues. Despite the tension, Taeyong smiled. He liked how Hannah never treated him like he was fragile. Jaiwin leaned forward, her expression serious. We're not leaving, Captain. Taeyong is crew. We don't abandon crew. Daeho nodded slowly. All right then. We stay alert, we stay mobile, and we don't take unnecessary risks. Agreed? They all agreed, including Taeyong. He felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the temperature. This was what family felt like. The trouble came 3 weeks later. They were docked at a small refueling station when 2 armed Kravik mercenaries approached Daeho in the market. The Kravik were a warrior species, known for taking contracts without asking too many questions. We're looking for a human captain traveling with a young Vraksh, one of them said. He was nearly 7 feet tall, covered in scarred gray skin. We have questions. Daeho kept his hand near his sidearm. I'm just a salvager. Don't know anything about that. The second Kravik smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Funny, you matched the description perfectly, and we saw a small Vraksh on your ship. My son, is there a problem with that? Son, the first Kravik laughed. A human raising a Vraksh whelp? That's rich. Daeho's expression hardened. Unless you're here to arrest me for something, I suggest you move along. The Kravik looked at each other, Then back at Daeho, we're just gathering information. For now. But you should know there's interest in that boy. Serious interest. The kind that pays well. They walked away, but the message was clear. Someone was offering money for information about Taeyong, possibly for the boy himself. Daeho returned to the ship immediately and told Hannah to prepare for departure. They left the station within the hour, jumping to hyperspace as soon as they cleared the gravity well. Taeyong sat in the cockpit, watching the stars stretch into lines as they accelerated. They're never going to stop, are they? Daeho didn't answer right away. He adjusted their course, taking them deeper into frontier where the Empire's influence was weaker. Finally, he said, maybe not, but that doesn't mean they'll succeed. I don't want you to get hurt because of me. Kid, look at me. Daeho waited until Taeyong met his eyes. I made a choice the day I found you. I knew it might be complicated. I knew it might be dangerous. But I also knew it was the right thing to do. You don't get to carry that guilt. Understood? Taeyong nodded, but the worry didn't leave his face. Over the next few months, they changed their routine. Instead of staying in well-traveled space lanes, they worked the deep frontier, taking jobs and systems that most salvagers avoided. It was more dangerous, but it kept them away from Empire patrols and nosy mercenaries. Taeyong adapted to the new reality with a resilience that surprised even Daeho. The child who had once cried over a broken toy now helped plan escape routes and watched the scanner for unknown ships. He was growing up faster than he should have to, but he was growing stronger too. One evening, while Taeyong was helping Hannah repair a damaged power coupling, she asked him if he ever missed a Vrake's empire. No, Taeyong said without hesitation. But sometimes I wonder what it would have been like if I had been born normal, if my wings had grown right. You think you'd be happier? Taeyong considered this. I think I'd be different. Maybe I'd be like the ones who left me. Maybe I'd think I was better than everyone else. And now I know that being strong isn't about having wings. Captain Day told me that. He said strength is about not giving up even when things are hard. Hannah smiled. Your captain is a smart man. He's my dad, Taeyong corrected. It was the first time he had used that word, and it felt right. 6 months after the adoption, they received a coded transmission. It came through channels that only a few people knew about, encrypted with a key that Daeho recognized immediately. It was from Bora, the Vrake's exile who had helped him at the council. The message was brief but significant. There was a movement growing within the Empire, Bora said. Young Vrakes who questioned the old ways, who believed that strength came in many forms. They had heard about Taeyong, the flawed child who had found a home among humans. Some saw him as an embarrassment, but others saw him as proof that the Empire's rigid beliefs were wrong. They want to meet you, Daeho told Taeyong after decoding the full message. Not now, not soon, but someday, when it's safe. Taeyong stared at the message on the screen. Why would they want to meet me? Because you're proof that their system is broken. You're living a good life, even though the Empire said you weren't worth anything. That challenges everything they believe. I'm just me. I'm not special. Daeho put his hand on the boy's shoulder. That's exactly what makes you special, kid. You're not trying to be a symbol or a hero. You're just trying to live your life. But sometimes, that's enough to change a world. Taeyong didn't fully understand, but he trusted Daeho. If his dad said he mattered, then maybe he did. Years began to pass, though the crew hardly noticed. Time had a way of moving quickly when you were always moving, always working, always one step ahead of trouble. Taeyong grew taller, though he remained small by Vrake standards. His wing buds never developed beyond tiny protrusions on his back, but he stopped caring about that. He had other things to be proud of. He became the best scanner operator on the ship, able to identify valuable salvage from a distance that impressed even veteran salvagers. He learned engineering from Hannah, navigation from Jaiwan, and negotiation from Daeho. He could speak 6 languages fluently and understand 4 more. He was fast, clever, and absolutely loyal to his crew. On his 10th birthday, by human reckoning, Daeho gave him a gift. It was a small patch to sew onto his jacket, the kind that crew members wore to show which ship they belonged to. It had the steady hands emblem, a simple design of a hand holding a wrench among stars. You're officially crew now, Daeho said. Not just passenger, not just ward. You're one of us. Taeyong held the patch like it was made of gold. Thank you, Dad. It was the second time he had used that word, but it would not be the last. The Vraksh Empire continued to watch them from a distance. There were occasional incidents, moments of tension at stations, or close calls with patrol ships. But the Empire never made another direct move. Perhaps they had decided that Taeyong wasn't worth the diplomatic trouble. Perhaps they were simply waiting for the right moment. Dae-ho didn't care which it was. Every day that Taeyong was safe and happy was a victory. Every laugh, every accomplishment, every moment of peace was proof that they had made the right choice. One night, as they drifted through a quiet sector of space, Taeyong sat in the captain's chair while Dae-ho checked their course. It had become their routine, these quiet moments together. Do you think things will ever change? Taeyong asked. The Empire, do you think they'll ever see people like me as equals? Dae-ho was quiet for a moment. Maybe. Change is slow, especially for civilizations as old as the Vraksh. But I've seen stranger things happen. You really think I can make a difference? I think you already have. Dae-ho smiled at him. You survived when they wanted you to disappear. You're thriving when they said you were broken. That alone is revolutionary. Taeyong looked out at the stars, at the infinite possibilities they represented. He thought about the Vraksh who were questioning the Empire, about the future that might be different from the past. He thought about his crew, his family, the humans who had given him everything when his own kind had given him nothing. The galaxy thinks humans are crazy, Taeyong said, repeating something he had heard many times. They say you adopt every stray you find, that you can't help yourselves. Guilty as charged, Dae-ho admitted, I'm glad you're crazy. Me too, kid. Me too. The steady hand continued on its journey, carrying its small crew through the vast darkness of space. Behind them was a trail of salvaged dreams and second chances. Ahead was uncertainty, danger, and the endless possibility of tomorrow. But in that moment, none of that mattered. What mattered was the small Vraksh boy in the captain's chair, the human who had refused to leave her behind, and the family they had built from spare parts and stubborn hope. They were exactly where they needed to be.